I never set out to be the guy who shakes up a neighborhood, you know? All I wanted was a quiet corner of the world, a place where the mornings hum with birds instead of traffic, where the silence feels like it's holding you together after a lifetime of chaos. That's what I found when I bought my little slice of heaven, a 15-acre lake, tucked behind a curtain of cedar trees, just past the back porch of my cedar shingle cabin, a place I'd pieced together with my own hands after 25 years in the Navy, building bridges and pipelines in places most folks only see on the news. The Lake Clearwater, I called it, was mine, fair and square, picked up at a county auction a decade back, when nobody else even knew it was up for grabs. Old logging land, abandoned, forgotten, until I got the deed, stamped with water rights and all. Every morning, I'd sit on my dock with a mug of black coffee, watching the mist curl up like smoke, herons gliding low, dragonflies buzzing like tiny drones. In spring, a pair of ducks would nest near the north shore, their ducklings waddling into the water like little daredevils. That lake wasn't just property, it was peace, the kind you can't fake, no matter how many city planners or HOA boards try. My cabin sat just outside the boundaries of Pine Hollow, a tidy little subdivision full of young families and retirees who, for the most part, kept to themselves. I wasn't part of their HOA, never wanted to be, and the developers knew that from day one. For years, we got along fine, live and let live, you know? But then, last summer, everything changed. It started small, like trouble always decent newsletter stuffed in my mailbox, and signed, announcing the new HOA president, Deborah Walsh. She came with big talk about community synergy and shared spaces, the kind of buzzwords that make your skin crawl when you've seen enough bureaucracy to know where it leads. Soon after, I noticed little yellow flags popping up along the edge of my property, right where my gravel path met the public trail to the lake. At first, I thought they were for utilities, maybe a gas line or something. But then came the stakes, then chalk lines, like someone was sketching a plan on my land. I called the county. No permits, no projects, nothing on the books. That's when I knew something was up. 2 weeks later, I came home from town, grocery bags swinging, and stopped dead in my tracks. A bulldozer was parked 10 feet from my dock, and a crew in orange vests was unloading mountains of white beach sand onto my shoreline. They'd already ripped out half my wildflowers, flattened a duck nest, and set up plastic lounge chairs like we were in freaking Miami. I marched over, heart pounding, and asked the crew chief, "You got a permit for this?" He barely looked up. "Talk to the HOA. We're just doing the job." I told them to stop twice, louder the second time. Nothing. So I climbed up, yanked the key from the bulldozer, and held it like a grenade. That got their attention. They started yelling, threatening to call the cops. I said, "Go ahead, I'll wait." That evening, Deborah rolled up in a shiny black SUV, chrome rims glinting like her ego. She stepped out, all designer sunglasses and a clipboard, like she was auditioning for a reality show. "You must be Jack Harper," she said, her smile as fake as the sand she'd dumped. "And you're trespassing," I shot back. She waved a hand, like I was a kid throwing a tantrum. "This is a community access zone, Jack. Our records show the lake's part of Pine Hollow's recreational plan." I laughed, short and sharp. "Your records are garbage. I've got the deed, lady, and it's got my name on it, not yours." She didn't flinch, just tilted her head. "We're building a community beach, Jack. It'll raise property values, yours too, if you play nice." I looked past her at the mess me dock half buried. The ducks gone, the water line churned up. "I spent 25 years keeping places like this safe from people like you," I said, voice low. "This isn't a negotiation." She smirked, turned on her heel, and said, "Take it up with the board." That night, I pulled out my file box, every map, every survey, every letter from the county I'd kept since I bought the place. By morning, I had my lawyer, Sarah, on the phone. By noon, we'd confirmed my deed with the county. By dusk, I had a certified letter drafted, demanding they stop or face a lawsuit. But I knew Deborah wasn't the type to back down. She was already posting flyers, calling it Hollow Beach, acting like she owned the place. She wasn't just after my lake. She was selling a fantasy, and I was the only thing standing in her way. Deborah wasn't your average HOA busybody. She'd come from some gated community in the city, where she'd probably ruled over mailboxes and lawn ornaments like a dictator. She called herself a neighborhood visionary, but I called her a headache in heels. The HOA used to be run by folks who cared about practical stuff: trash pickup, streetlights. But Deborah? She wanted control, and she wanted it loud. She'd already strong-armed half the neighborhood into repainting their fences and hiding their garbage cans. Nobody pushed back, and that silence was her fuel. Her big plan was to turn my lake into a shared amenity. She started pitching it at HOA meetings I wasn't invited to, claiming the lake was historically communal. Pure fiction, but she sold it hard, waving old photos of kids splashing around, as if that gave her rights to my land. She even got a few families to chip in for beach enhancements, not knowing they were funding a scam. I heard about it from a neighbor, Ellen, a sweet lady who walked her lab past my fence every day. "Jack, are you letting them build a beach?" she asked one morning, looking worried. "Eh, what?" I said, nearly dropping my coffee. "On my shoreline." She nodded, pointing toward the lake. "Deborah says they're breaking ground next week." I showed up to their next meeting, uninvited, in my old flannel and work boots, carrying a folder of documents thicker than a phone book. The room went quiet when I walked in, like I'd brought a storm cloud with me. Deborah was up front, pointing at a poster of her dream beach complete with umbrellas and a snack shack, like we were in the Bahamas. She was mid-speech, all smiles, talking about family-friendly recreation and property value boosts. I raised my hand. Her smile flickered. "Yes, Mr. Harper. Whose land are you building this on?" I asked, voice steady. She didn't miss a beat. "The community's." I stepped forward, opened my folder. "Funny, because this deed says it's mine. County stamped, 2013. No public access. No HOA rights. You're building on my property, and I'll sue you into next year if you don't stop." The room buzzed. Deborah's eyes narrowed, but she kept that fake smile. "This is a misunderstanding, Jack. We'll review the documents." I cut her off. "You don't need to review anything. You need to stop." I left, posted no trespassing signs along the shore, and thought that'd be the end of it. But Deborah doubled down. A week later, I got a letter from the HOA fancy letterhead. Fake seal claiming I owed $900 for obstructing community progress. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my coffee. They were fining me for protecting my own land. That's when I knew this wasn't a misunderstanding, was a fight, and Deborah was playing dirty. The next morning, I woke to the roar of trucks. Dump trucks, lined up like an army, unloading more sand onto my shore. They'd torn up more of the bank, crushed the last of the duck nest, and were spreading the sand like they were paving a highway. I grabbed my phone, started recording. "This is Jack Harper, on my property, parcel 47219B, owned since 2013. I'm filming an illegal trespass and destruction of my land." The workers froze. One guy muttered, "I don't get paid enough for this," and walked off. Then Deborah showed up, strutting across the sand in flip-flops, like she was already on vacation. "Jack, you're making this harder than it needs to be," she said, all fake sweetness. "Get off my land," I growled. She laughed. "You can't own a lake, Jack. It's water. It's for everyone." I pointed to the logo on her SUV. "Deborah Walsh, Realtor." "This isn't for the community," I said. "You're selling lakefront lots that don't exist." Her smile dropped. For a second, I saw panic in her eyes, but she covered it fast. "You're picking a fight you'll lose," she said, stepping closer. I didn't blink. "I've faced worse than you in war zones. Try me." She stormed off, but the damage was done. Sand everywhere, my shoreline wrecked. I called the county, filed an environmental complaint, and reported her to her real estate board. That night, standing on my dock, staring at the mess under the moonlight, I knew this wasn't over. Deborah wasn't just stubborn, she was dangerous, the kind of person who'd burn down a forest to sell the ashes. The next HOA meeting was a circus. Every chair was taken, people standing in the back, whispering like they'd heard a scandal. I walked in with my navy cap and my folder, ready for war. Deborah was up front, acting like nothing had happened, unveiling a new beach rendering with cartoon kids and umbrellas. I stood up, cut her off. "This is my deed," I said, passing out copies. "This is my survey. This is the county's letter saying you're breaking environmental laws. You're not building a beach, you're stealing my land." The room went dead quiet. Deborah tried to interrupt, but I kept going. "You're spending HOA dues on an illegal project. Every one of you could be liable." A guy in the back shouted, "Is this true, Deborah?" She stammered, "We have historical rights." I held up my map. "History doesn't beat a deed. You're done." After that, things moved fast. The county sent inspectors, who tore into Deborah's excuses. "Did you file a permit?" they asked. She didn't have one. They ordered her to stop, warned of fines, maybe even lawsuits. The local paper got wind of it. Homeowner drains lake to stop HOA's illegal beach. Comments online ripped her apart. Board members started quitting. Neighbors showed up at my gate with apologies, even a pie from a couple down the street. But Deborah wasn't done. She sent more fines, stuck a property in violation sign on my land. I yanked it out, added it to my growing pile of her nonsense. Then I remembered something, a drainage valve I'd installed years ago, hidden under ferns, meant for flood control. I hadn't planned to use it, but Deborah left me no choice. One morning, I opened the valve. The lake started to drain, slow at first, then faster. By day 2, the water was gone from the fake beach, leaving her sand high and dry, chairs tilting in the mud. Neighbors noticed. "Something wrong with the lake?" one asked. "Nope," I said, "just letting it breathe." When Deborah saw it, she lost it. She stormed across the empty lake bed, screaming, "You drained my beach." I held up the state's conservation papers. "It's not your beach. It's my lake, and it's protected now." She sank to her knees, digging in the mud, screaming like her world was collapsing. It was her real estate scam, her HOA throne, all sinking into the silt. The HOA backed off after that. They dissolved the beach project, promised to clean up the mess. Deborah disappeared, her license under review, her name erased from the HOA website. The county approved my conservation easement, making Clearwater untouchable forever. I put up a sign, Harper Preserve, not to gloat, but to remind everyone. This lake isn't a prop. It's alive, and it's mine to protect. Looking back, I didn't drain the lake to win a fight. I did it to show what happens when you push too far, when you think you can take what's not yours. Some folks still whisper about developers circling, but they'll hit a Walmy wall, built of deeds, truth, and a stubborn love for this place. So what do you think? Was I right to drain the lake, or did I go too far? Drop a comment. Tell me your stories. Have you ever had to fight for what's yours? Let's talk.